The JCVAP 3D ICA coil rebuild tutorial. Let's get into it. As you can see at my heater, it is cracked, but it does still work. After unthreading the top of the chamber and taking out your inserts, you're going to remove the bottom brass pins. After that, you're going to pull out the JCVAP 3D coil system. As you can see, there's a lot of chaz building up at the base of the 3D heater. We're going to do a different video on how to clean those off, but until then, we're going to just keep on with this rebuild. When comparing the two, make sure that you cut your leads right. Don't cut them too short. Longer is always better, because then you can just cut them down and make them where they need to be when you need to make them that size. First, take off the silicone wire lead covers. Before anything, make sure you use your older 3D ICA heater as a reference for how to have your wires set up. As you can see, there are two 90-degree angle bends on each wire, one basically at the point of connection and the other one right above where the temperature sensor wire grommet is located. I'll be honest, I didn't make the most perfect of bends, but in general, my system ended up working at the end. Let's continue on into this build. After leading your wires through the bottom ceramic spacer, you can see that I really didn't do much bending, but we're going to do some bending on the top side of the wires. I didn't do the bottom side just because I'm a little bit lazy and I wanted to see if it would work. And it definitely did, so you have nothing to worry about if you don't do as much bending as the original heater. After bending the outer two wires towards the center wire, make sure you have all your leads facing towards the bottom of your atomizer chamber housing, parallel to the temperature sensor wire. Now we're getting close to trimming down those wires, but there are two methods of cutting usually for these chambers. I'd say that you want to have your pins in first before cutting. You might still have an issue with a red-white flashing light or a white-white flashing light, but it's always better to have the coils longer than shorter. This is because if you cut your wires too short at the start, the brass pins will not make a flush connection and you won't actually get a circuit going through the whole thing and you won't end up having it fire, and then you'll have to buy a new heater. So I'd recommend putting in your brass pins first and then trimming down your lead wires. Don't worry about the temperature sensor wire all that much at first. You'll have to worry about cutting that down after getting those brass pins in, checking to make sure that it's working and all that, just getting those wires originally trimmed to the size for the brass pins. Now I started by trimming the temperature sensor wire down to the brass pin. It really didn't work at first, but in general I started by doing that, and then I also trimmed down the heating wires to the brass pins. Now that you have a new heater in your 3D ICA, you're going to want to screw the top of the chamber back on and put it onto your Pro base. You want to do some testing, make sure you don't get those lights, but as you can see, we got both of the light codes that you never want. From there, we're going to go back and trim our coils a little bit further. But if you're scared to trim your wires any further, try a hard reset by holding your button down for 20 seconds, letting your power back on, letting your blue flashing lights stop completely, then press your base button again for another 10 seconds until it powers back on. This will confirm whether or not you actually have a good connection, a bad connection, or whatnot. Either way, we're going to do a little bit more trimming to our wires. If your base tweaks out while not having a chamber in, thinking that there's some short on the connection, don't trip. You'll just have to do another hard reset. Either way, let's take those base pins out so we can trim those wires a bit more. To play it safe, I cut these wires while it was still inside of the chamber housing. It didn't really do anything, and I had to take it out and do the cutting. Just for the record, I was getting white flashing lights after that until I did the disassembly and did the trimming after that. Now just going back to reference the original heater and how long the wires are, you're going to want to make sure you cut them about the same length. Now cutting less is better in this case because you don't want to cut them too short to where they don't actually even connect to the brass pins. I know that the brass pins need to be made longer by someone, either Puffco or JCVAP, but in general, until then, make sure you don't cut your wires too short, because if you do, then you're going to have to go get another heater, and that's just a pain. Now that all your wires are trimmed, you're going to reassemble your heater into your chamber housing. Next, make sure that your wires are pushed to the side of the silicone grommet on the bottom and throw your brass bottom pins back in. Next, you want to thread on the top chamber housing and perform a heat cleaning cycle to your heater before putting an insert back in for a session. Now again, usually you'll have to do a hard reset to your device, but also if that doesn't work, you can just tighten or loosen your chamber. Eventually, you'll actually have it working. Do a couple of extra hard resets and it'll work just fine. Now give your new 3D ICA heater some time to clean with 2 to 4 heat cycles. And now if you still want to use your old heater, you can get that chaz off. A good majority of the chaz can be removed with a brass brush, but we will have another tutorial going over in-depth cleaning in a separate video. As you can see from the brass brushing, it's really faded, but getting back to our new 3D ICA heater, we've given her about 3 to 4 heat cycles, and now we're ready to throw the insert back in. But before, I want to address a potential issue on the silicon carbide inserts and their mirror polish finishing. As you can see, it's not mirror polished anymore. If you saw my original silicon carbide unboxing video, you'll definitely see the difference without a problem of even seeing it, not a question, as I can show you. I mean, I'm honestly pretty pissed about it, but we'll see what happens with a replacement getting sent out, and we'll have another video coming to you about that very shortly. I personally have a terrible opinion of many of these third-party companies, mostly because they don't provide any content around troubleshooting, and then they throw it all to me without actually supporting the channel. They don't create promo codes with me or collaborate. That's why I choose 3gram for everything, guys. They support our channel. We have affiliate links with them, so go check them out. They're gonna have a 3D chamber coming out pretty soon. All in all, I'm pretty pissed about this silicon carbide. And then I send JCVAP an email about this, and all they say is that I should disassemble my chamber housing. Like I didn't know what already to do. Either way, I digress. Thanks again for checking out this video. Don't forget to like it, subscribe, or become a member to help support the content that we create. Don't forget to check out the live streams. Stay elevated, and peace out.